People who had a falling out with a friend group, what happened? He would hold me to a higher standard than our other friends, and after group hangouts would tell me things that I said were wrong and or hurt him. I would apologize and try to correct my actions, but it was always something. It got to the point I got extreme anxiety just being in the same room as him. But if friends would make jokes, ABT things he had asked me not to, he wouldn't say a peep to them. But if I ever tried to talk to him about anything he said or did, he'd chalk it up to him suspecting he's autistic and depressed. I urged him countless times to talk to a therapist or professional then, but he would just make excuses and keep using it as a crutch.
That sounds tough. I've had a friend like that too, always pointing out my mistakes after hanging out. It made me feel like I was walking on eggshells. I guess some people just don't see their own issues clearly. It's frustrating when you try to help, but they don't want to help themselves. It can change how you interact and feel around them, which isn't healthy for anyone involved.
A dude in my friend group started falling behind. We got licenses and jobs, went to college and moved out, and he just didn't. He'd ask for rides, ask for food, and complain about not having enough time for him. He said he'd pay us back, but would never do it and would act like a child when he didn't get his way. The final straw was over Pokemon cards. We still played when we had time, and one night he asked for some cards to borrow. I told him no. He asked why, and I said because I said no. He then decided the appropriate response was, "I'll tell everyone you're a pedo if you don't." Everyone in the group was stunned, and he played I off like a joke, but he had a habit of sharing rumors, and this wasn't a joking matter. We all cut contact the next day and cut him from our trip. Of course, he told everyone we were all pedos, but no one listened to the AITA and the fedora.
It's wild how quickly things can change in a friendship. This guy just couldn't keep up, and it went from asking for help to making threats over cards. That line he crossed was something else. It's crazy to think how someone can turn a group dynamic upside down, especially when they don't know where to draw the line. Cutting ties was probably the best move. It's just unfortunate it had to end like that.
Honestly, it's childish, but we had one friend in our circle of friends, and she was the type that was friends with everyone. But we knew her from so long ago. And we found that she went around gossiping about us, her closest friends, allegedly, to other people, but the type of gossip where she would look really good compared to us others. That wasn't nice.
It's always rough when a friend turns out to be more of a gossip than a true ally. You think you know someone for years, and then they go around making themselves look better at your expense. It's like, what was the point of being close if that's how you treat the people who care about you? Trust gets broken real quick in situations like that, and it's hard to move past it.
He tried to convince me converting to a religion I didn't believe in was a worthwhile sacrifice to marry the woman I loved. The breaking point was that I got him an early Christmas gift and he returned it because his wife wanted to get it for him, but hadn't already bought it. It was just a video game.
That sounds frustrating. It's tough when someone tries to make you compromise your beliefs for a relationship. The gift situation really shows how some people can be caught up in their own ideas and disregard others' feelings. A video game should be a fun gift, not a reason for conflict. It's annoying when people don't appreciate the thought behind gestures like that. Guess it's good to know who your real friends are.
I had to cut a person out after a bit over 19 years of what I thought was close friendship with flirting. It got to the point where I was dreading seeing their name on my phone screen. I was tired of being manipulated into financing their life. I was tired of walking on eggshells because of their endless sensitivities and triggers. I was tired of being a constant source of support while never being able to talk about what bothered or troubled me. I was tired of giving. I know it doesn't sound like I was a good friend, but I did everything I could to be the best friend possible, and it left me feeling drained and miserable. I still think about them for a minute or two every day, but I just can't go back.
It's tough to let go of long friendships, especially when they start feeling one-sided. You put in so much effort, but when it becomes a chore, it's a different story. Cutting ties can be hard, even if it feels necessary. It's natural to think about them sometimes. In the end, you gotta do what's right for your own well-being, even if it means leaving some people behind.
My friend was intoxicated. She started screaming at me. I was really taken back. She then took off and left me stranded in a location I didn't know. I started receiving calls and texts from her friend. Her friend started talking badly about my family. Things that she never should have known about unless my friend had said these horrible things. I was done at this point. She apologized profusely the next day. What I realized was she had told me all her friends' secrets and talked bad about them. Turns out she just talks bad about everyone. I cut my losses on a 20-year friendship.
That's rough. It's surprising how quickly things can turn when someone gets drunk. Sounds like she really didn't respect you or your family. Trust is huge in friendships, and when it's broken like that, it's hard to come back from. Sometimes you just have to walk away from people who bring more drama than support. Cutting ties after that long must have been a tough call, but it seems like the right choice.
Moved in with a few good friends to escape my controlling parents. Then figured out my roommate was an asshole on multiple levels, including room sharing, and the other friend I was counting on to back me up and kick them out was too afraid to take a side in a conflict. My ex-roommate was also the admin of the friend group chat, so I left that too when I moved back in with my parents. That was pretty much the worst year of my life. Basically decimated my social life. Put myself back in a horrible living situation, and I had to finish college on top of that. Frankly, just glad I managed to not kill myself since I've finally got a new place, new job, and new friend group.
That sounds really tough. Trying to find your own space while dealing with difficult roommates is never easy. It's rough when the support you expect from friends isn't there. Moving back in with your parents must have felt like a setback after trying to gain independence. But it's good to hear you found a new place and a new job. Sounds like things are looking up now.
I was deployed for our school soccer team, which also means I won't be attending school for at least 2 months preparing for a regional championship. For absolutely 2 months, we were forced to do military training. The sun burnt my skin, and I was lonely. None of them greeted me when I came back. They started avoiding me and treating me like someone else. They were never real friends anyways. They stabbed me in the back.
That sounds rough. It's tough when you think you have friends, but they don't stick around when things get hard. It can really make you rethink those relationships. Sometimes you learn who your true friends are in the hardest moments. It's part of growing up, even if it's not easy. Just focus on the future and find people who value you for who you are.
Gold fever is real. My brother got jealous when working for me at a hedge fund. He was making $30,000 a month doing sales, but I was making $100,000 a month as owner. He somehow read the books and became enraged that my partner and I, who had started the fund a year before he joined as an employee, were making so much more. We increased his contract hugely prior, but still he just felt he was owed as much as a partner, even though he didn't invest any equity, and I literally couldn't make him a partner as the partnership was already made a year before he joined, and my partner didn't like him and wouldn't have cut him in any way, and rightly so. We haven't talked in 7 years, even though I've reached out several times. Sucks, but true that don't mix money and family.
Sounds tough. It's interesting how money can change relationships. Your brother had a good paycheck, but it wasn't enough for him when he saw your earnings. It's a clear example of how expectations can ruin connections. You tried reaching out, but he's stuck on that resentment. Guess it shows that family and finances can create a pretty complicated mix. It's unfortunate that you haven't talked since.
Substance abuse and poor communication skills on my part. I rarely socialized growing up, so I didn't know how to confront people. So when I moved in with my best friends, I didn't know how to confront them on their bad habits and chose to bottle it up, which eventually made me resentful of them. I also developed a drinking problem because I didn't know how to handle my emotions. So when our lease was up, I moved into my own place. However, the damage was done, and they wanted nothing to do with me after that. Haven't had friends since.
It's tough when you realize how much communication matters in friendships. Holding things in can really mess things up, and it sounds like you went through that. Moving out was probably a good choice for you, but it's a shame it cost you those friendships. It's hard starting over without that support, but it's a step to figuring things out on your own. Hope you can find a better path now.
I tried to express how I felt about an incident where they expressed immense dislike for my boyfriend without a proper reason. I never had an issue or had the courage to properly express my feelings for something they did that I didn't agree with. When I tried to tell them how I felt, they immediately dismissed my feelings and turned defensive. They even blamed my boyfriend for my opinions, as if he planted those ideas into my head.
It sounds like a tough situation. Trying to talk about your feelings and getting shut down really sucks. It's frustrating when someone can't see where you're coming from. Blaming your boyfriend for your feelings is just unfair. It's hard to communicate when the other person gets defensive like that. It makes it even harder to express yourself in the future. I hope you can find a way to resolve it.
They intentionally were cruel to this one girl. This girl hadn't done anything to any of them. She was just unpopular and friend group was the cool group. I couldn't play along and ditched them that night and never looked back. It was very lonely for a long time, but I would have been miserable being their friend after that.
It's tough when you see people being unkind for no reason. It's easy to go along with the crowd, but stepping away takes strength. I remember a time when I did something similar. I chose to walk away from friends who were bullying someone. It felt isolating at first, but in the end, I felt better knowing I stood by what was right. Sometimes, being alone is better than being part of a toxic group.
My best friend of 12 years finally moved to my state last year. Not much more than an hour drive away. Actually, we had talked at length that we were going to visit each other so often now that she was coming here. 10 months go by, and we never do make those plans cause she's always too busy or hasn't settled in yet. And then she drops the bomb on me that she eloped to Vegas with a guy she met down here. Genuinely so extremely happy for her. She's had terrible trouble with men, but she wasn't too busy for him, and I still don't even know his name like a year later. We'll always love her, but that's not how you treat your best friend.
It's kind of wild how life goes sometimes. You wait years for someone to be closer, and then when they finally are, they just drift away. It's great she found someone, but it feels off that she didn't even share much about it. It's a big deal, you know? Just leaves you wondering where you fit in. You want what's best for her but still wish for that friendship connection.
Well, she was a loser alcoholic who was adamant she didn't have a problem. The one night she got far too drunk and was throwing up everywhere, crying, etc. I took her home as I usually did when this happened. When I dropped her back at home, I decided it was the last time. I simply blocked her and went home. I realized I was always making excuses for her and her behavior. I will never do that again.
Sometimes you realize friendships can be toxic. I had a friend who would always drink too much and never see it as a problem. One night, it got really bad and I had to take her home again. After that, I figured it was enough. I stopped making excuses for her behavior and just blocked her. It taught me a lesson about setting boundaries and knowing when to walk away.
His paranoia with people in an online video game. We had a guild in an RPG that was getting very popular. I started to make friends with other guild leaders since I was on most of the time. He suddenly took it as I was betraying him almost 20 years of friendship down the drain because he took a game too seriously than what it was.
It's wild how a game can unravel friendships. I remember a similar situation where my friend got really jealous when I started hanging out with others in a multiplayer game. He thought I was abandoning him, but it was just about enjoying the game. We ended up drifting apart because he couldn't see it that way. sometimes people take stuff way too seriously, and it costs them relationships.
My former best friend dated the girl I liked as a teenager. He knew that and obviously didn't care, but this wasn't the real problem. He told me that he wouldn't date her because of my feelings for her, but he lied to me for months, and I only found out because the girl told me. After a few months, he let her down without a reason. I didn't talk to her for years, but this wasn't the only reason. He was an asshole before that. The girl I liked is now my best friend since many years.
Sounds like a rough situation. Your friend didn't really have your back, which can be disappointing. It's interesting how things turned out, though. Now the girl you liked is your best friend, so maybe it all worked out in the end. It's good you moved on from that friendship. You don't need that kind of negativity in your life.
She had kids and decided we were too different since I didn't have any. I told her I had no problem with her kids and that they were always welcome along anytime we hung out. She said she wanted her kids to grow up with other kids around, so she needed more mature friends. I later found out she never wanted kids and was jealous that I chose to get sterilized and not have children. She was envious of the lifestyle I chose to have. Sucks to suck.
It's tough when friends drift apart over life choices. You try to be supportive, but sometimes people make decisions based on their own jealousies. It's wild how someone can project their feelings onto you. At the end of the day, you have to live your life for yourself. Not everyone will get it, and that's okay. Just makes you appreciate the friends who understand you more.
I will never forget when my roommate/best friend came up to me the day before we were to resign the lease and tell me he wasn't. I just sat there and looked at the lease, knowing I'm footing the whole bill now. I can help you find a new roommate in 24 hours? When I have to screen? The hell anybody could. I don't know what story he spun to everyone, but he didn't tell them the truth as I reconnected with one of them. They hung out without me so much, and I never noticed until I did, and confronted one of them. If they would rather hang the dude who burned me on my lease, and not me, that's fine. But just because I don't like him, you're damn right I don't. I'm also mature enough to get along with people I don't like. So, go ahead, hang out with the dude who screwed me and probably still lives with his mom.
It's wild how some friends can just bail like that. I had a similar situation once. I thought we were tight, but then he just decided to leave me with everything. I remember thinking about how unfair it was. I had to scramble to find someone new in no time. It changed how I trust people, for sure. Makes you rethink those friendships and who really has your back.
Please consider subscribing if you enjoyed. Love.